The figure in the car window. My name is Emma. I live in the remote countryside of Ireland with my partner, Alex, and my brother, Jamie. We just finished visiting my aunt in a slightly less remote part of Ireland. We had a good time, but ended up staying later than we should have. Way later. I tried to convince Alex that we could just spend the night with them, but he felt like he was imposing. He's the type to avoid that at all costs, so he insisted on going home that night. And since we were Jamie's only ride home, he was dragged along too. So, in the dead of night, around midnight, we began the long 2-hour drive back home. Jamie has night blindness. And I, embarrassingly enough, don't have a driver's license. Even at 25. So it was all on my poor partner to drive us home. That's how we ended up in this situation. The three of us barreling down this empty country road in the dead of night. Something straight out of a horror movie. We were about an hour into the drive when I first noticed it. Alex was focused on driving, and Jamie had fallen asleep. So I was left to my own devices. I had exhausted any entertainment my phone could give, and turned a tired eye to the window. At first, I didn't see it. At first, I just thought it was my own reflection, or Alex's, or something appearing in the glass. It was hazy and distorted, like I was trying to look at something under rippling water. But the longer I stared, the more clear it became. What started as a pale, formless shape took on more clarity. Like it was emerging from the shadows to make itself known. Edges became more defined, features more apparent. A wisp of hair, the hollows of eyes, the bridge of a nose. The contours and shapes of a face. The second I realized it wasn't my reflection, I shot upright in my chair. My eyes went wide as I continued to gaze at the strange apparition. I blinked hard and rubbed my eyes, thinking I must have just been tired and seeing things. But when I opened them back up, it was still there. Even clearer this time, though still too fuzzy for me to make it out clearly. But there was no ambiguity left in what it was. It was a face. A disembodied face that seemed locked to the window. It didn't bob like it was floating, or move like it was traveling separately from the car. It was like it was locked to the window, keeping perfect pace with us. We were going way too fast for anything to be doing that normally. My eyes quickly darted over to the speedometer. 80 km, and yet there it was. A face in the window. Alex, I said, grabbing my partner's arm. Alex, what the hell is that? I held his arm for dear life, the hair on the back of my neck standing on edge. What the hell is what? Alex asked in return, his eyes only briefly leaving the road to look in my direction. The thing in the window. What is that? It looks like a face. Alex took another glance at the window I was so horrified at. A longer one this time. But his eyes eventually returned to the road. And with a shrug, he said, I don't see anything. I was utterly shocked and frankly kind of pissed off. The face wasn't exactly difficult to see. It was quite obviously there. Are you blind? It's right there. It's practically touching the glass. My head swiveled, darting back and forth between Alex and the face. I couldn't comprehend how he wasn't seeing it. Alex took one last look before shaking his head. Emma, there's seriously nothing there. Are you sure it's not just your reflection? I started to get angry by this point. I slapped his arm, which elicited a pained yelp from him. Do you think I don't know what my own reflection looks like? Well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't see anything. Exasperated and annoyed, I turned back to the window and locked eyes with the creepy face once again. I stared at it, long and hard, really double-checking to make sure I wasn't just seeing things. But I wasn't. It was there. The details were hazy, but it was there. It couldn't be Alex's reflection because he wasn't facing the window. And it didn't follow my head when I moved. The face had become even clearer in the past minutes. I could make out more of it now. More of its entire head. It looked misshapen. Something was wrong about its shape somehow. My heart was starting to pound. Fear was gripping my heart. What was this thing? Was I just losing my mind? My brother must have woken up from our shouting, because I heard him stirring in the back seat. Before he let out a bleary yawn and leaned forward. Arms on the backs of our chairs, head leaned forward between them. What are you two yelling about? Are we home yet? He mumbled, still groggy and tired. No. We've still got another hour. Alex replied. Emma is just seeing things. My brother turned to me with a raised eyebrow. I'm not seeing things. It's right there. Jamie, look. I leaned back in my chair to let him get a look at the window. Do you see it? In the window? Jamie stares into the glass, narrowing his eyes and leaning forward. No. I give up. What am I looking for? I dropped my head into my hands, frustrated and scared. Alex and Jamie tried to comfort me, but I wasn't having it. I didn't know why I could see it and they couldn't. Was I genuinely having some kind of breakdown? I kept my head down for a while, eyes shut tight, not making a sound aside from the occasional whimper. I think I must have dozed off at some point, because I startled awake sometime later from the jostling of the car over a pothole. At first, I wondered if it could have been a dream, but I could feel it. I could feel its gaze from the window, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. I didn't want to look. I didn't, but I had to. It felt like I was being compelled, like something was yanking me towards it, forcing me to look. Morbid curiosity? Or was it something else? I finally stole a glance at the window against my better judgment. It was still there, and now it was even more clear than before. I could make out more details that I couldn't last time. Raw red skin, blood oozing from exposed muscle tissue on its face, burn marks on its charred scalp, hair that's still singed with fire. I wanted to cry. I wanted to cry and scream and get out of this car. But my panic was put on hold as I noticed something else. The face was rapidly becoming clearer, faster than before. It was coming into focus so fast I could watch in real time as its full face emerged from the haze. I was glued to it, unable to tear my eyes away. It's like I was paralyzed. My eyes opened so wide they practically hurt. As we passed by mile marker 312, the face finally gained its full appearance. For just a moment, it became perfectly crystal clear. Only at that very spot, before it quickly began to fade away back into a blurry mess. Fading quickly, as though to just give me a quick peek. But that one glance was more than enough. The face had revealed itself in full to me. A gruesome deformed mess. I could make it out with complete clarity. The side of its head smashed in, caved through like a collapsed building. Blood seeped through torn hair that was scorched black by fire. The face itself was raw and red, skin almost completely torn away, leaving nothing but bleeding, burning tissue and exposed bone. Its nose was torn away, and one eye was completely missing, leaving nothing but a grotesque and empty socket. Its mouth full of broken, shattered, and bloodied teeth. The face was so horribly deformed that I couldn't even make out if it was a man or a woman. It barely even looked human at this point. I finally lost control of myself. My stomach heaved, and I vomited all over my lap and the floor of Alex's car. The next few minutes were a chaotic blur of shouting and puking. I vaguely remember Alex pulled over onto the side of the road and got out of the car. I tried to plead with him to just keep going, to ignore me and drive. But he stubbornly refused. I couldn't stop from retching long enough to argue. I watched with dismay and horror as he walked around to my side of the car, the face still blurry in the window, and yanked the door open. And it was gone. The face was no longer in the window. That was 2 days ago. I had written it off until now as just a hallucination. Or a dream. It didn't really make all that much sense, but it was better than the alternative. I was perfectly content to seal the memory away and live on in blissful ignorance. But that little delusion was shattered just a few hours ago. I got a call from my aunt. Jamie had been in a terrible, terrible car accident this morning. The wreck was so bad that they were having to drive out to identify his body. The police said he was barely recognizable from the injuries. That would have been bad enough. Until they told me where the wreck happened. Right next to mile marker 312. I'm avoiding seeing his body at all costs. Because I'm so scared that if I see my brother now, I'll know who that face really belonged to. Thank you for watching. See you next time.